Yeah, when you were making Malcolm and Marie, it was really the height of the pandemic. Can you talk about how that working in that environment shaped how you worked and how the set functioned?
Right. Well, we had to, obviously, we wanted to do everything as safely as possible. So we kind of created a bubble. Um, we were all doing it on our own. I was putting my own money into it, as was, everyone else. And we were all really sharing, kind of this film together. And so we went off and we just kind of literally created a bubble where we were living in like a hotel-esque kind of thing that was empty. It was just us because obviously everything was shut down. We were in the middle of Carmel, and we shot in this home that was kind of literally in the middle of nowhere, which was lovely because everyone stayed safe. But we weren't allowed to leave for obvious reasons. And in that time of kind of quarantining together, we were allowed the time to work on the material, which is like a dream for me, just to be able to actually have the time to work with John David, who was with me, work with Sam. When we got there, we only had, the script was only about like 70 pages and there was no third act. So through that process of every day just being together, sometimes in a parking lot, just working through every moment and then getting it on its feet, and having these really long discussions that often turn into other things about ourselves, about our characters, about relationships, and how we treat each other in our relationships. How far would we go versus how far would our characters go? I would never say that to somebody, but she probably would, and being able to have that time, that space with each other to figure it out, was really, really helpful, and really not having any other distraction than just being in it every single day. And then I've never really been able to be so closely involved in something also when it came to like finishing the script, and even while we were shooting it, writing things and coming up with things and figuring things out as it was happening. If something didn't work, we'd stop and then we'd talk, and then we'd say, okay, well, what if we said this? What if we did this? And I mean, I'm grateful to Sam Levinson, who I obviously got to do Euphoria with. I asked him to help me make something, and he made this beautiful thing, and he allowed me to be a part of it every step of the way, which is very, very rare, to have that kind of creative freedom and that ability to figure it out with the people that you work with. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to use this space, because obviously, given that, we only had it's just two actors, a very small crew. So we're all doing like 4 different jobs. I'm doing my hair and makeup, and, using some of my clothes that I brought as set deck, and, trying to remember my continuity because we don't have, any ADs or scripty or anything, but it was, I learned a lot about myself, and trying to maintain interest, and trying to keep this story between these two people who love each other but are clearly sometimes very toxic for each other, going when you're stuck in one space and only have so much room, and you can't just yell the whole time. You got to figure out dimensions, because it only takes place within a few hours. So it's, how do we find this without completely losing people, or just staying one note, or dipping people get bored or whatever. I had to find a way to continuously go back and forth with John David, who is a powerhouse, and so has so much presence, and definitely challenged me to meet him, and it was very, very special. But yeah.
What do people get wrong about acting?
It's a tough question, and everybody's answered it so well. For me, at least, is that it's also a business. which is something that I've had to learn as a young person, because often you get into it just because you love it and you just want to be creative and you just want to do the fun stuff, but it is also business and there are contracts involved and a lot of things that don't necessarily contribute to the creativity or contribute to this idea of the freedom you think you'll have. And I learned that, or I have been learning that as I grow up, is there is bigger entities involved, and and it can be tough. There's money, people. There's just so much more to it than I think people really understand. And I've just been grateful at least to have a positive experience and to be able to learn the other side of the industry. And I often encourage young people who do want to do this too, to read your contracts, be aware, have those conversations, ask as many questions as you can, try to get advice from people, because it's easy to get stuck in a bad situation, and having that knowledge is really, really important.
What will you do differently in 2021?
What will I do differently in 2021? Well, the world is obviously different now, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. And for me, it's definitely been about gratitude, not only just for my job, but I got to be in this situation with a global pandemic happening and know that I had a job to go back to, or I know that I could create a job for myself if I needed it. And I think that for me, it's going into this next year with just an extreme amount of gratitude for every opportunity for my job. I try to just take all of it in because I love it so much, and I'm very, very lucky to be in the position that I'm in. Whatever I can do to, again, tell more stories that I want to see be told, or make opportunities for people who absolutely need it. That was one of the coolest parts about Malcolm and Marie, is creating a structure in which all of our crew members got points on the movie, so they got back end, so they got paid in a time where they didn't have an opportunity to make money. So to me, that is really important, and keeping hope for sure, because it feels very dark at times, and I've said it a bunch, but I'm very, I admire my peers, many of which are my friends, many of which are out in the front lines, on the streets, doing the work. Again, gratitude.